Hi guys, today I'm going to show how I made what I'm calling my two-way slider card. And the best way to show you what it's going to be is to show you what it ends up as at the end. So you pull one tab and the two different sliding mechanisms will pull your images in two different directions. So I'm going to be using My Favorite Things Frightfully Sweet stamp set. I had started to color them with colored pencil and realized it was going to take way too long. So I stamped them out on Copic friendly paper and then just colored them in with my Copic markers. I'm just going to cut them out with the coordinating dies. There's a lot more images here than obviously I'm going to use because I have some other cards that I'm going to be making with the same set for the Halloween. So for the background, I'm just going to do some ink blending. And I'm just going to use some Seedless Preserves and Stormy Sky and the Black Soot. And I'm not going to make you sit through this because it's the same as everybody. So I just put on the Seedless Preserves, went over it with the Stormy Skies till it blended out nicely, and then just put a little bit of the Black Soot on top just to kind of give it that nighttime look. And then I splattered it with some water. I'm just going to take some cardstock, and right now just you're watching me go through the process. I came up with this idea while I was at work and I had to wait a week before I could try to put it together. I honestly had no idea how I was going to do it. I just had kind of like a basic idea. So some of the things that you'll see in the video, I actually ended up not doing or changed completely. So here you can see I have cut some strips. This is the same way that you would do any other slider card where you make some little slots and put in the I'm using a Ziploc bag that I cut down, but whatever plastic you want to use for your slider mechanism, and it just rolls right through. You put it in one side, out the other, and then fasten it to the back. So here's my little Ziploc baggie that I cut up, and I'm going to be running it through the loops and attaching it to the back. I originally used staples, but then I went back and changed it to some strong adhesive because for this mechanism, although loose is okay with a single slider, it doesn't work very well for the double. So you need it to be not super tight, but a little bit tighter than what you would be able to do if you used staples, unless you had like that really flat stapler where it would do it pretty tight, but I don't. So I'm using the adhesive and it worked out fine. I just used something to kind of burnish it down to make sure that it didn't come up. And then I'm going to trim this off and I'm going to attach the top the same way. So this part is no different than any other slider card that you've probably seen in the past. So once I get this attached, I'm going to slow this video way down for the middle part because my battery died right at the worst possible time. So I will try to explain what I'm doing as soon as I slow the video down so you can get some idea from when it picks back up what happened in between. So both of these mechanisms are done. I've got the two different slider components and now I'm just going to cut a piece of acetate. Now you need to use something kind of thick. This can't be flimsy acetate, so if you need to use a thicker cardstock, that's fine as well. So the point here is you want to attach the bottom slider to the top slider piece. And to do that, you need to, in order for them to go in opposite directions, it needs to be on the top of one and the bottom of the other. That's why there's a channel right there in the middle. So that piece of acetate is going to attach to the bottom piece on the front of the card, and then when you flip it over, it's going to attach to the back on the back of the card. So the top piece will be attached at the top of the back. I hope that makes sense because now we're back to adding the pull tab, and you see what happens when I pull. Right there where that piece of tape is on the top is where it is attached. So it's attached from one side, it goes through and attaches to the other side. So as long as it's front and back, I don't know how else to say it. I will try, if people want to try to make this card, I will try to do a better video where you can actually see step by step and use colored cardstock to show you the difference between the pieces, if that's something people want. I don't know how many people will be interested in making this card. I have like a lot of ideas for what this card could be. Santa's workshop with the toys on the conveyor belts. I mean, I've got like a million ideas, but you know, if people want me to slow it down and really do an actual good video showing you how to do the double slider, I will do it. Just leave some comments and I will go back and do it again. But now I'm just putting my foam adhesive on the back, just to kind of pop it up, and you need to make a channel just like you do for a regular slider card, so that you don't want your pull tab to be sliding all over the place. And I'm just using fun foam that I cut down and attached all over the back. You just have to make sure when you attach it that you don't like block your slider mechanism. Now for the top piece, again, you can't block your slider pieces. So you have to kind of figure out where you want to put it. And I'm going to pop it up, and I'm only going to pop it up in the areas where it won't impede my sliding mechanism from pulling my characters back and forth. So I'm going to attach the slider piece just so that I can see exactly how far I need them to go before I actually attach the ground. So I'm going to be using 2 characters on top, 2 characters on the bottom. And I cut kind of a fat piece of acetate so that they can both fit on the same piece. So when I slide them, they slide together. And I'm just going to put that on the sliding mechanism. And I kind of attach him off to one side, flat against the acetate. And then the little raccoon I'm going to pop up just on the one side and attach him next to him, just to give it a little bit of dimension so that they don't look like they're standing right on top of each other. And make sure that it doesn't, there goes the top people. Now we're going to finish putting our pop-up pieces all along where it's not going to get in the way of the sliding mechanism, so that we can attach the ground cover to the top half. So we're just going to, sorry about my head. When I have to line things up, I get so focused on what I'm doing that I forget there's a camera over the top of my head. I apologize. So I got one kind of behind the hill and one on top of the hill, and I'm just going to kind of fussy with him back and forth until I get it so that he's actually touching the ground and he doesn't have any spots where he's floating, because he does end up, I'm going to have to pull off one of the pieces that pop him up just so that he moves better along the ground right there. And this is, like I said, you're watching the process as I am figuring it out. There's a lot of stuff I had to cut out because there was a lot of time where I'm just standing there going, how do I make this work? And it was videoing the whole time, which is probably why my camera died on me. But here's the top piece. So these guys are going to move one way. And now we're going to connect the bottom 2 characters to the bottom slider. So same thing, just kind of a thicker piece of acetate that I'm going to attach to the bottom sliding mechanism. And I'm going to put my little bunny and my hedgehog on the bottom, and I'm going to do the same thing where one is going to be flat and one is going to be popped up. And I thought I wanted to do another hill, but then I realized there isn't enough room. My original idea was to have these little trick-or-treaters heading towards a house to get candy on 2 different sides, and then, you know, your aspirations of what you want and what will actually fit on an A2 size card are not the same. So once I realized I didn't have enough space for a lot of this, I had to rethink my entire design of what I was trying to do. So instead of walking towards houses, they're just going to walk towards the buckets of candy on either side. And this one is more like it's on a road instead of another hill. So I'm going to flatten out that piece of brown cardstock. Instead of it being a hill, it's just going to be a, yeah, his poor little ears weren't fitting underneath the raccoon's tail, feet. And I do end up changing that. I end up putting another pop-up piece behind the bunny, and then just not taking off the protective sticky part. So I leave the sticky, whatever you call it, the thing on there to keep it from being sticky. I leave it on so that he just slides back and forth, but then that brings his ears on top of the raccoon and not behind it. So that way he just slides back and forth easily without getting caught up on the raccoon's feet. Which you'll see when, well, you saw in the beginning that it slides pretty easily back and forth. And then I'm just going to trim off the brown on the bottom. And that looked like a good place to put my sentiment. So that's where I'm going to heat emboss my sentiment after I finish making the pull tab. And I just cut it down, use my little corner chompers, and then just wrote the word pull because I don't have a pull stamp. And then I'm going to try to figure out where I want to put my candy buckets. And the reason why, normally I would have popped them up and the candy would have been positioned a little bit better than it was, but I ended up having to make them flat because my fox on the top wouldn't have reached. You know, if I popped it up, they would have smacked into each other and I wouldn't have been able to slide it back and forth. So I had to make that part flat so that way he could reach the candy bucket. And I did the same thing on the other side. So the candy, to me, looks a little wonky. Normally it would look better because it would look more like it was coming out instead of spilling all over the place. But this time I just made it so it's kind of spilling out of the top and all along the bottom. And that was just so that these guys could actually make it to the candy bucket. Then I wanted to add something to the sky, and for this challenge you can only use MFT stamps and dies. So a lot of this, I have a hillside die, but I didn't use it because it's not an MFT die. Also, I'm sure that there's a lot of other things I could have used, but I didn't. I ended up cutting everything by hand and doing it all by hand because I didn't have the dies specific to MFT. So I added some little stars on the sky just to try to make it look more like a night sky. I took the Have a Frightfully Sweet Halloween and I heat embossed it with white embossing powder on the bottom, and that's pretty much the card. At this point, all I have to do is attach it to a card base, and then, like I said, I am going to pop that bunny up just a little bit so that he slides above the raccoon and not behind the raccoon. So this is me just attaching the whole thing, and make sure that you don't tape or get tape anywhere where your sliding mechanisms are going to be, either one of them, or else you will not be moving anything anywhere. And this is going to be where I realize that Bunny can't go behind the raccoon, but Bunny has to go on top of the raccoon. I'm just going to kind of clean up the edges a little bit. And then I don't think I actually videotaped me putting the little thing on the bottom, but here's what happens now with him popped up. He goes right over the top instead of underneath the raccoon, and they both make it to their respective little candies. So that's the end of my video, and I hope you enjoyed my two-way slider card. And I'm going to be entering it in the challenge. Thanks so much for stopping by, and I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.